Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It was a pretty good Sunday with two special derbies in England and Spain, North London and Madrid derbies respectively, and in this episode we will talk about these games. So without losing any time, let's start with Arsenal versus Spurs, which was probably the most entertaining game I watched this season so far. As a football spectator, it really satisfied me with the individual quality and the derby atmosphere, and of course with the tactical clash between coaches. Specifically, Arsenal's intensity with their high press and Tottenham's courage with their short build-up made the game more exciting than the previous North London derbies. Arsenal are one of the best high-pressing teams in EPL. Against the unique build-up play Ange Postecoglou brought to Spurs with fullbacks extremely inverted to create central overloads, Arteta's high press was slightly different than his usual 4-1-4-1 to 4-4-2 and certainly effective. We saw Arteta split the pitch into two vertically. On the right side, we can say it was fully man-to-man approach, Saka on Udogie whether he stays narrow or wide, White on Johnson, Ødegaard on Van de Ven, Rice on Maddison and Saliba on Son, while on the left side, Arsenal were a bit more option-oriented, trusted the players' judgment and communication and defended Spurs triangles with their own triangles and intermediate players, except Nketiah, who was on Romero. Gabriel and Zinchenko were deciding to jump on the player dropping deep, mostly Sarr, but sometimes due to positional rotations, Pedro Porro. This decision was based on Kulusevski's position. If he stays narrow at the last line, Zinchenko was jumping, if wide, then Gabriel. Vieira was between Bissouma and the player at the left inner corridor, while Jesus was between the wide player and Bissouma. When Bissouma receives the ball from the back, the trap was triggered and either Jesus or Vieira was jumping on him. If the back line decides to keep +1 at the back, then Vieira drops deeper on the inner corridor, and Arsenal players nailed it. Their press was effective and they created most of their chances in the first half with the possession regains through their high press. Especially in the first 30-35 minutes, it stopped Spurs' progression through left corridor, disconnected Maddison from the game, their main orchestrator, and without Maddison, Ange's team was not as effective as we know. Within this period in first 30 minutes of the game, I had one question in my mind. How would Arsenal players react if Maddison shifted to the other half further? Would his marker Declan Rice follow him all the way? The first attempt of Maddison to shift to the opposite side during build-up was a disaster, honestly. Rice joined the option-oriented approach of Arsenal's left side, communicated very well with Jesus, while Maddison was only scanning Rice, but not the other side. This ended up with a very dangerous high turnover and Arsenal's best chance in the game. And if Arsenal had scored this and made the game 2-0, it could have been a very different game. As expected with the help of the game state as well, towards the end of the first half Arsenal reduced the pressing intensity a little bit. This was very natural of course, and when Spurs could push Arsenal blocks, we saw Arsenal started to stand with their common 4-4-2 structure at mid and low blocks. Maddison recognized that when Arsenal started to have this zonal 4-4-2 at lower blocks, Rice was not following him further and instead protecting his zone. Then a few minutes later, at a moment between Arsenal's high press and 4-4-2 mid block, Maddison overloaded the opposite side. Rice first followed him, but then recognized his backline was not aggressively marking their man, so he decided to drop to protect his zone. On the other hand, the rest of the players were still having a man-to-man approach. This tiny communication error created a problem in self-organization and offered the time and space Maddison had been looking for since the beginning of the game. With this little present, Maddison sent a very good weighted low ball to Kulusevski, and this was how Spurs could enter Arsenal's third before the equalizing goal. Many things happened inside Arsenal's box until the goal, but this small error was the main reason how Spurs could progress the ball into dangerous zones. In fact, John Mackenzie from Tifo Football mentioned this back in August after the Community Shield game between Arsenal and Manchester City and pointed out the switch between structures and approaches during out of possession phase might be a weakness that can be exploited by the team in possession. And it looks like it was not a coincidence that he made this observation at another Arsenal game. It looks like Arsenal has a small problem during that moment, during the transition between sub-phases of the out-of-possession phase. Their press is almost perfect, but I believe to win EPL, you really need to perfect all mini situations like this, and I'm pretty sure Arteta will work on this. The dominant phase of the game was Spurs build-up and Arsenal's high press, as we discussed. Spurs' bravery in possession was certainly a reason for this phase to be dominant, but another reason was Arsenal's low composure in possession. Arsenal are a very positional team, but it was quite difficult to talk about their structure, especially until they scored the first goal. One reason was Spurs' man-to-man high press during Arsenal's deep set plays like goal kicks, which forced Arsenal to play long and run for the second balls, but it was also because of a bit of hasty decisions with the ball by Arsenal players. Maybe a little bit because of the derby emotions, maybe a little bit because of the heart rate increased during the high-intensity high press. That's why most of the touches made, especially in the first half, was in Spurs half but was also done by Spurs. First time we could observe Arsenal's 3-2-5 in possession was at 30th minute. The patient build-up created an advantageous progression, a 5v5, and important chance for them. In second half, with Declan Rice's injury and Jorginho's presence, I expected Arsenal to be a bit calmer with the ball. However, surprisingly, Jorginho also continued to play these hasty and risky passes. In addition, of course, high press intensity reduced by having Jorginho instead of Rice, and Maddison started to have more and more space. This shifted the game a bit towards Spurs at the second half until about 80th minute. Later, Arsenal finally started to play with a bit more patience, but it was a bit late to create anything out of it. Eventually, Postecoglou's team showed that they are up to fight against the best teams of EPL, either they play at home or away, and they do this with their own way, with courage. Similar to what Brighton have been showing us since the Derby. While Arsenal also showed that they are still one of the best teams of EPL, no question about that. And I believe they were a little bit closer to win this game. They were a little unlucky about the chances they missed in the first half and the fact that Spurs punished them from a tiny error they had with their almost perfect out-of-possession approach in the first half. In fact, maybe we can generalize these in-between situations a little bit more, as Paco Cirillo perfectly describes football as games within the games. Football is a game of continuum of many mini situations. So there are always transitions, not only between in possession and out of possession, but also within these spaces. There are transitions between all mini situations. From high press to mid block is only one example. Now let's talk a little bit about the Madrid Derby, specifically how Real Madrid constantly struggled in another inner transition. Simeone had a very clear plan on how to defend and attack against Real Madrid, and his players executed the plan perfectly. It is very rare to understand the game plan by only watching highlights, but for this game it was really possible, at least to understand the main plan of Atleti. Real Madrid basically conceded almost same goal for 3 times, and in all of them there were big problems in protecting the box. Whenever Atleti created a 2v2 or a numerical advantage at wider areas, it automatically ended up with a free man in the box. Of course, Atleti players made their runs perfectly timed, and they were 100% knowing where the white player was going to aim his cross. But Real Madrid's inability to create population in the box when Atleti switched the ball to the wider areas was also a key in these goals. And they certainly aimed to play towards left wing due to the differences between centre-backs of Real Madrid. Rudiger on the right side, Atleti's left side, who can be taunted more easily, while Alaba, who might have difficulties in 1v1 marking, was at the far side. Aiming obviously far post with runs to the blind side of Alaba, plus late runs behind the space opened after Rudiger jumps, all very well planned and perfectly executed by Atleti. In similar situations, Atletico Madrid's defensive performance could be shown as a lesson. Whenever Real Madrid tried to create a numerical equity or superiority in wider areas and attracted the wing-back or wide-back of Atletico Madrid, Atleti's midfielders dropped deep to close the gap. Here are a few examples from Koke. Not only dropping deep, but also communicating and assuring his defenders to jump without hesitation. This forced Real Madrid to use long, low XG shots. 12 of 20 Real Madrid shots were from out of the box. According to Mark R. Stats, one of my favorite Twitter accounts on football analytics, Madrid could create less than 1 XG from 20 shots and 75% field tilt, while Atleti could create little more XG than them from only 25% field tilt and with much less threat, showing how efficient they were when defending and attacking against Real Madrid. 2 great derbies with lots of things to talk about. We specifically focused on some transitions in this video, which were very influential on the result. Football is all about self-organization, self-maintenance and communication. It was maybe a little unlucky and cruel for Arsenal, even making one small mistake in this resulted in an unwanted scoreline. But on the other hand, we saw when you perfect these elements like Atleti did against Real Madrid, then you can be unstoppable. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please don't forget to press the like button and don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Until next time.